Hello, everybody, and welcome to Drunk Science Episode 3, where we talk briefly about vision. Now, I don't have a drink of the day because I've already done all of that for today, but somehow I think you'll forgive me. Well, I have an empty Monster can and an empty Pepsi can, and I think between those two, we can agree there's been a lot of beverages in this room. So we'll move on from there. So today we're going to be talking about vision. There it goes. Now, as you know, vision is one of the 5 traditional senses. You actually have more than 5. You have things like nociception, which is sense of pain. I can't remember what it's called, but like the sense of where your various body parts are, which is why you can close your eyes and touch your fingers together without seeing them. But vision is one of your standard 5, along with touch, taste, hearing, and smell. And then vision would be the 5th one. But how does vision work? Well, to get into that, we're going to look at what is called the visual apparatus. I'm going to see if I can draw this. Maybe. Close enough? Alright, so I redid it because that was horrible. So this is a diagram of the eye, also known as the visual apparatus, and we're going to start with this layer here, called the cornea. The cornea is a twofold purpose. It's this clear layer in the front of your eye. I guess I'm pointing to my eye, but it's this clear layer in the front of your eye, and it protects the pupil from getting like dust and dirt in it, because the pupil is just a giant hole. You know, it's got variable sizes, but it's just a giant hole, so it can't really block anything from coming in. And it's also the first step where refraction takes place. Reflection is when you look in a mirror and you see the light waves bouncing off and back to you. Refraction is when light passes through a medium and gets bent. It's kind of like it's talking to Bart Simpson and then he tells it to get bent, and it actually does. Light is very sad. Okay. So the cornea is directly in front of the colored part of the eye, which is called the iris. There's also the white part of the eye called the sclera, but we're just going to ignore that because that's just like the outside part, and it doesn't really have to do with vision a whole lot. The iris is this guy. You can't read that at all, can you? I'm going to try that again. There, I think that's a little better. The iris is this guy here, and it's the thing that changes size. It's the thing responsible for the size of the pupil, and it's also the colored part of your eye. The color comes from a pigment, melanin, the same pigment responsible for your skin color. And if you have like brown eyes, then you have a lot of melanin. If you have like blue eyes, then you don't have very much at all, and then the light is just kind of going through there and refracting through all of the fibrous tissue to make sure that extra light doesn't come through, because otherwise what's the point of a pupil? Yeah, believe it or not, that segment took like 10 minutes to film. God, so tired. But then, once light has gone through the cornea, through the iris, well, through the pupil, then we hit the lens. The lens is kind of your money maker for your eye, because that is the major point where refraction happens. Remember, refraction is the bending of light. Your lens is surrounded by all these tiny little muscles that kind of like stretch and shrink to change the shape of the lens, so that's why you can focus on something near and far. Oh God, that was disgusting. So now we move on to the retina. Now the retina is the thing that you might hear about the most, because this is where vision happens. I suppose. So the retina requires a little bit of special explanation because it is kind of complicated. What the retina is it's a series of layers. There's like two main layers. And what's really funny is that if light is coming in from this direction, it actually has to pass through a layer before it hits the layer of cells that responds to light. It's kind of weird. Like cuttlefish and squid and stuff like that, octopi, they are flipped so that the light comes directly into the photoreceptive cells. So the retina is divided up into two main types of cells as far as vision is concerned. We have rods and cones. And what happens with that is we have like a cell body, and it goes here, and then you have like this big photoreceptive section, and like that, and nucleus, and that's a rod because it kind of looks like a rod, and then we have this section that kind of looks conical, and it's kind of like that, and that's sort of what rods and cones look like. Rods focus on intensity of light, and that's where we get black and white vision. And then the cones, you have three types of cones. You get red, green, and blue. And all of those together, those three colors, they form every color that you can imagine out of light. Additive color mixing, which is, yay, fun. I had one more thing I wanted to tell you, but now I can't remember. Ah! Now I remember! These cells, they work in kind of like this weird backward way where the photons hit them and they energize them and they actually stop the flow of a neurotransmitter called glutamate. So it's kind of like working in reverse. It's almost like you turn off the light switch and then the light comes on and it sends the information back through the optic nerve, which we'll mention in a second, and into your brain and all of that. And it's kind of bizarre. And the last part is the optic nerve. It's that right there. The optic nerve connects from the retina to the brain, and then it passes through areas of the brain and goes to the occipital lobe back here where vision is processed. Now, a lot of things can go wrong with your eye, but if you mess up the nerve, it's kind of like messing up the auditory nerve with hearing loss. There's really no way to come back from that, because that's like directly connected to your brain, and it operates much like the central nervous system, where it doesn't really grow back if it's damaged. So now we're going to talk about things that can go wrong with your vision, starting with reasons why you're going to need corrective lenses. I need like super heavy vision correction. I have my contacts in right now, but I can't see squat. Specifically, I am nearsighted. For those who don't know, that means I can only focus on things like super up close without them getting really blurry. Like I can see it here, but then it starts moving away, and oh my god, and what happened to it? I'm totally not reusing my diagrams at all. In a perfect world, light comes in here through the lens and focuses to a point in an area right about here-ish called the fovea. It's an area on your macula. That's the highest concentration of cones. So that's where you get the really fine vision, and that's a good thing. However, if you have myopia, then your vision focuses at a point somewhere inside of your eye, in the middle. There's a couple reasons for this. It could be something with the lens, it could be something with the shape of the cornea, it could be muscle. I mean, the reasons why don't really matter so much as what you're going to do to fix it. You can just get like glasses or something like that. But the key thing here is that you're focusing inside of your eye. Now this is different from being farsighted, which means you can only see things far away very clearly, and that's called hyperopia. So with hyperopia, your vision is focusing outside of your eye past your correct focal point. So you're focusing out here, and that's bad. Side note, people who are nearsighted as they age, they generally see a little bit of improvement because as you get older, you generally become slightly more hyperopic. Hyperopic? Whatever. You get slightly more farsighted as you get older. The next condition is something that everyone has to deal with if they get old enough, and that is cataracts. Your lens is made out of a protein called collagen, which is the same protein that they do a lot of cosmetic surgery with. And what happens with cataracts is that the collagen fibers over time kind of cross-link and bind together, so your lens, instead of being nice and crystally clear, becomes cloudy and light has a hard time passing through it. And if it gets really bad, you can start losing like colors, and you lose some of your central vision. Either way, it's just hard to see. But everyone has to deal with those eventually if they get old enough. Thankfully, cataract surgery is super advanced, and they can replace your lens in like a 10-minute procedure total. Some places have it down to like 6 minutes. It's actually a really fascinating procedure, and I can expound on that a little more if people want, but it's really cool and really fast. So now, to understand this next bit, which is actually incredibly common, I want you to go find something like clear that you can see through. I don't know, like a sheet of plastic or something like that, preferably circular, something like that. I'll give you a second. Found it yet? Good. Let's move on. So I was going to have something for this, like a visual aid, but I can't find it, and I think I broke it. So you're going to have to settle with my hands. Now I want you to take that like sheet of plastic or whatever and just kind of look through it. And everything looks normal, right? Right? So now bend that sheet of plastic just a little bit. And you see how things kind of warp in the middle? That's kind of like how an astigmatism works. Astigmatism is a really common condition, like 25% of the population has it, or something like that. I think that's a recent figure. But what's happening there is if you have the lens that's nice and circular and it's refracting everything the same, you get a nice uniform image, right? Well, with an astigmatism, you have like an axis, like let's say it's nice and super simple and directly vertical. That axis is refracting things differently. The key thing to remember here is that you're refracting things differently on an axis. There are several reasons for this condition. It could be that your eye has kind of a weird shape to it. It's not quite spherical. There's like a little bit of elliptical character to it. Your cornea could be slightly changed. Plenty of reasons why this could happen. Side note, I have an astigmatism and I have to wear special contact lenses. And if you put those contact lenses in the wrong way, it is blisteringly painful. So our last one is glaucoma. Glaucoma, in short, is a buildup of pressure inside of your eye. Generally, the big issue here is that it starts killing off cells on the outside of your retina, all those rods and cones, and those don't really grow back at all. So with really bad glaucoma, you start losing your vision from the outside and it moves in, and bad things like that. Glaucoma doesn't really have a cure at the moment, but there are ways of making it manageable. Alright everybody, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Hopefully I'll have another one up at some point later. Don't forget to subscribe so you know when that happens. And once again, I take suggestions for the next video in the comments section. You guys take it easy. Bye.